Well, I promise I'll speak to it later. So hopefully you all are aware that we have a couple of speakers to launch and talk about the importance of this sector, of this emerging sector. Then we will have a tour of the platform itself, how it works, how you might participate in it, what you might find on the platform. And then the bulk of the session is really given over to a panel of nature-based enterprises, policymakers, people who are engaged in these activities, to really talk about what they see as the opportunities arising here and how we might advance this. So we have two speakers to help launch our platform, two people who've been working in this area, even though we didn't call it that before. One is our first speaker, we think, is Lord Mayor Hazel Chu here? Has she arrived? You identify yourself if you're here. Okay. Well, we'll come back to Lord Mayor Hazel Chu, who's going to speak. What we'll do first then is go to our other speaker, who is John Bell, Professor John Bell, who is the director of the Healthy Planet in the European Commission. He is the director of DG Research and Innovation in the European Commission, and he has been absolutely central in establishing research and innovation as a core activity of the European Union, and worked on setting up indeed the original Horizon 2020 program when it was launched. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to, I believe, Daniela to put on the recorded message from John Bell.
Lord Mayor Chu, colleagues in Trinity College Dublin, good morning, Dublin. Good morning, participants. My name is John Bell. I'm the Director for the Healthy Planet Research and Innovation Directorate at the European Commission. My job is to try and work together with research innovators across Europe to support this great transition towards a climate neutral economy and society working within its planetary boundaries. And here we can see that the great challenges we have ahead are asking us to think again and reframe what our ambition should be for nature-based solutions, because there will not be solutions without nature taking its course in how we set the next direction. Research and Innovation and our Directorate General here in the European Commission has been working centrally to develop, test, demonstrate and promote how nature-based solutions can move to the center of European and international agendas. I would say that nature-based solutions are currently moving from niche to norm. And nature-based solutions are an essential part of the Leaders' Pledge for Nature, which, as you know, was endorsed in September by 76 heads of state and government at the United Nations General Assembly, including by our European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen. And President von der Leyen has led this new commission to set out a new direction for the European Union. The next great mission of the European Union is to create a climate neutral Europe, working within boundaries and working using the means that we have available to make this transition fair and just. And nature-based solutions are part of this. This European Green Deal, as it's called, which is the objective of the European Union to be climate neutral by 2050, means a huge transition and transformation. So nature-based solutions can be part of this, can be part of the EU recovery plan, and a central part of what will we mean by European growth for the next generation. We know at the moment, this dreadful period that we're all going through, that the reconciliation of our biosphere with our economy and our society is probably the major story of this century. The COVID pandemic, of course, has highlighted the importance of nature for human health and well-being, and has increased awareness of the other long-standing crises facing our planet, that of climate change and of collapsing biodiversity. We are really in a generation where our planet and people and economy will work together in a new way if we're going to find a way through from crises such as this. The new EU Biodiversity Strategy is part of the Green Deal suite of new policies that the Commission has launched over the last year to prepare these great transitions. And it recognises that nature-based solutions can lead to significant opportunities for business and employment in different sectors. It's going to be key to innovation for economic and societal needs that rely on nature. And the Commission has invested heavily in research and innovation in nature-based solutions and will continue to do so through the Horizon Europe and indeed through the Green Deal. So nature-based solutions are an essential component of a sustainable future, and that's why our webinar today is extremely timely. I think you should be aware that we are so fixed on embedding and mainstreaming nature-based solutions in the way in which we go about imagining and building our future way of working, our future way of the economy working, and our way of coping with the different biosphere changes that are facing us, that we have launched a €1 billion European Green Deal call in recent weeks, in which the restoration wave is central to that initiative. You will have seen recently that in terms of the renovation that will be central to climate neutrality, there's a new European Bauhaus movement being proposed by the European Commission, and the renovation wave will do that in forms of the public buildings that will need to be renewed and rebuilt in the coming months and years to achieve carbon neutrality. But we're also talking in the research and innovation community about the need for a restoration wave to work with nature-based solutions at scale in some cases to deal with the problems that are facing us, problems as different as climate adaptation. And when I look at my own home city of Dublin, and we look at the challenges that are ahead in terms of sea level rise, decarbonisation and so forth, obviously the ability to work with nature-based solutions at scale will be critical. I draw your attention also to a number of Green Deal mission moonshots, which we've launched in the last few weeks. I encourage you to read them. The missions are moonshot ideas that can help to accelerate these substantive changes and transitions to more sustainable destinations. And we've launched 4 which are on the Green Deal, one about climate neutral cities, one about climate adaptation, one on soils and the food system, and one on oceans and water systems. And each of those have ecosystems and nature-based solutions, and the ambition for nature-based solutions to drive transformation and imagine what the destinations could be, and to build, test, demonstrate, and deploy them at scale at their heart. So the European Green Deal missions you should look at if you can, and maybe feed that into the thinking that's very much being launched today at this webinar. So I'm delighted to join you virtually today to celebrate the launch of the Connecting Nature Enterprise Platform. This is a really important innovation coming out of Horizon 2020, and more specifically the Connecting Nature Innovation Action led by Trinity College Dublin. I'm sure that the example that Trinity are giving with the front lawns of Burke and Goldsmith being given back to biodiversity is emblematic of the leadership that you're giving in this Connecting Nature Innovation Action. I imagine that this launch could create a new global marketplace, which creates directly markets with demand and supply. There are new forms of the economy coming together. We're going to live in the century of biology. The biosphere will inform so much of what we call the bioeconomy will bring to bear in new goods and services and work and ways of living. And Dublin, being my hometown, is as good a place to start as any. So cities and private sector buyers of nature-based solutions can connect with innovative enterprises supplying sustainable nature-based solutions. And I think for our Lord Mayor in Dublin, this is a great opportunity to show Dublin as a leading place in terms of setting this kind of relationship between innovative cities and private sector and applying and testing and buying nature-based solutions. The nature-based enterprises which will be featured on this platform can offer really significant potential to deliver on the ambitions of the European Green Deal and indeed the EU Recovery Plan. The Recovery Plan and this wall of investment that is coming, the largest since the Marshall Plan, will be looking for new ways in which business and economic opportunities can respond to setting out what the geography and the economy and society of the future can be in new businesses, value chains, innovations, and platforms. So I'm delighted with this opportunity to have a word with you today. I'm pleased that research innovation is contributing to the development of this sector. And I wish you all the very best and look forward to working together towards a more sustainable future. GA Collier, and good luck to you all in Dublin, and hope to see you there soon one of these days. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Super. Well, I think that is a very ambitious and exciting agenda laid out by Director John Bell, and backed by specific goals. You know, there's nothing more specific than saying you want to be climate neutral or carbon neutral by 2050, but also backed by, and I love the phrase, a wall of investment. So that's something that we hope that this platform can support and access. I think also it was great that John gave me a link into our second speaker, who is Lord Mayor Hazel Chu, who is going to talk about what's going on in Dublin with respect to nature-based solutions and some of the opportunities she might see there. She's not only the Lord Mayor of Dublin, but also chair of the Green Party in Ireland, which is on a growing trajectory. So I'm delighted to welcome Mayor Hazel Chu to talk to us now about what's going on in Dublin. So.
Thanks, Mary, and thanks, John. Hi, everyone. My one's going to be quite short, mainly because John already covered a lot of, in terms of the overall global and European strategy of what we want to see. In terms of Ireland, as Mary pointed to there, I am the chair of the Green Party as well, who are in coalition government at the moment, and one of our main priorities is to make sure that there's climate action, and we launched the climate action bill. I published that 2 weeks ago for exactly this manner. Part of the reason going into government is because the climate action side cannot wait. So we are facing into a recession. I think we all know that, calling a spade, that from January to April this year, you will notice a drop in overall where we are percentage-wise. And this is the thing, I just did a speech on the Innovation Summit there, and one of the things we were talking about was circular economy and the importance of having a green recovery, not because just for the sake of recovery. Of course, we all want to make sure that we have sustainable recovery, but the reason for a green and sustainable recovery across the board is that it is also economically just. We've noticed time and time again when there are crises in the world that it is always the most vulnerable and the poorest that will get affected most. You look at it from Hurricane Maria to now with the pandemic. And with the pandemic, you notice straight away that it happens to be people within the homeless area, people who are working in meat factories, people who are in direct provision that are more likely to have clusters there. But but I've been speaking to a lot of frontline workers, and there's a huge difference between me, who's remote working, and someone who's packing shelves for 12 hours a day on the likelihood of possible transmission again. So again, when you look at the pandemic as a whole, it does affect the most vulnerable in our society, and those who would be within a working environment that doesn't afford them the protection. And this comes down to why we need a green recovery, and it comes down to why we need nature-based solutions as well, because we look at nature-based solutions and we kind of go, oh, what does that really mean? But in reality, it means simple things like, if we have green roofs and tree pits in the city centre itself to aid urban drainage, so that when it comes to flooding, it doesn't affect those who can't afford to pay for a fixture or maintenance. It means wetlands, constructed wetlands to improve water quality. So, and also we noticed in Cork recently of the flooding, if we have nature-based solutions that are embedded into a recovery, it will mean that we stall the effects of climate change that would have a direct effect on those who live near flooding routes, live within flooding zones, and particularly those who, again, back to my point of can't afford the to pay the damages or maintenance of what comes with climate change. So, and this is where this is why I'm heartened to see projects like projects coming from Trinity, coming from UCD, that directly contributes to how we plan for our future. Whether people like it or not, the future needs to be a greener one, because it needs to be a more just one. And we need to justly transition those who work within the fossil fuel industry into a greener, sustainable space. And within that space would be nature-based solutions, will be greener solutions like retrofitting. Again, the nature-based solution could directly be linked into the plan to retrofit across the board. And again, retrofit, people kind of, whenever I mention that word, they just look at me and go, oh, is that just a nice to have? I would look at it from a housing point of view and go, well, if you start retrofitting new old builds of council houses and public housing, and also retrofit new builds as well, coming forward, what you will mitigate is fuel poverty among those who need it most. So, and again, the nature-based side of things ties exactly into that, of if you look at the materials being used. So on that note, I would like to say thank you for the discussion panels like this, because the more we discuss these ideas, the more that we can build to a better future, the better it is for all of us. So, but it is also the aspiration to do it. We've always talked about it, we've always planned for it, and as tough and as challenging a time it is now, and I hate to use the word opportunity, but there is an opportunity there. On one hand, there is a massive tragedy that's happening on our doorstep, but on the other hand, there's an opportunity and a need for leadership and bravery of where we go now and what we do now. And the European Green Deal, as John said, is massively important. But from our Irish level, what we push in terms of innovation, in terms of partnership, in terms of outside the box thinking is also massively important. But we do need to hold something dear to heart, is that we need to have nature back to heart, back to base is what I call it, and that needs to be something that's embedded across the board. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor Hazel Chu, talking to us there about what's going on, some of the issues we're facing here in Ireland, but of course around the world. And I think she made a very important point that we're also finding that focusing on nature-based solutions or nature-oriented businesses will largely have a social impact as well, and it's an important feature in these businesses and in these activities. So I know we're running a little bit behind time, so I'm just going to, without further ado, introduce the participants here to Isabel Fletcher, who's Director of Research and Innovation at Horizon NUA, as well as Antonia Lorenzo, who's R&D Director and CEO at BioAzul, one of our nature-based enterprises. And they're going to talk about how this platform can help link together nature-based enterprises and buyers, sellers, supporters, etc., and how we can really accelerate the growth and awareness of this sector. So over to you, Isabel and Antonia.
Thanks, Mary Lee. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen now. Hopefully you can see it now, I think. Great. I'm really pleased to be here this morning to be able to bring you on a short tour of the Connecting Nature Enterprise platform that's officially being launched today. You heard John Bell speak about the increased demand for nature-based solutions and how the concept has become increasingly mainstreamed. We know too from the research carried out that problem owners like cities seeking to implement nature-based solutions face a real challenge in terms of identifying and finding enough skilled suppliers who can design, implement and manage the nature-based solutions that these problem owners need. The challenge or roadblock provided the incentive for us to develop the Connecting Nature Enterprise platform, to proactively connect potential buyers of nature-based solutions with suppliers of nature-based solutions. Indeed, our hope and our vision is that the platform will act as more than just a connector of buyers with suppliers. We hope it will serve as a seedbed to inspire innovators to design and create new solutions or adapt solutions to different contexts, that policymakers will connect with practitioners, that best practice can be shared through our communities of interest. Let me show you now very quickly some of the main features of the platform. With over 160 nature-based enterprises registered on the platform thus far, a user to the site can search our interactive map by country, city, or sector. Once registered on the platform, bear with me now, a nature-based enterprise can add a sample of the products and services that they offer. I'm very quickly going to show you the profile of Helix Planson, one of our early registrants on the platform. Oh, it's a little bit slow. Here we are. So Helix are based in Germany. You'll see a short description of their offering, and you can see here now that they have displayed up to a number of their products and services, both in German to cater for the market that they're serving nationally, and the international market through English. The more information provided by a nature-based enterprise on registration, the higher up the search ranking you will go. So we really encourage you to keep your profiles up to date and add as much information as you can. Opportunities. You can use the platform to disseminate opportunities to a global audience. You can post your opportunity in English or in any other language, and you can see here that our colleagues in Bologna have posted a local opportunity here in Italian. Share your opportunity with all of the nature-based enterprises on the platform, or you can confine it to limit it to circulation to a specific sector. Opportunities can range from a tender to design, implement and manage a nature-based solution. It could be a job or a research opportunity, a competition, a funding call, or even to provide feedback on a piece of smart tech. If you're looking for inspiration or support, post an open challenge here on our challenges site. You might be looking for fresh ideas about a nature-based solution for a particular site, and our colleagues in Sarajevo here have posted exactly that, looking for inspiration to create an intergenerational urban garden. Or you might be looking for an answer to a technical question. You can see here we've lots of challenges posted on our challenges platform. The challenges are open to everyone with an interest in the topic to respond to, and we really would encourage you to jump in and respond to the challenges posted already on the platform or post something new. Finally, over to our communities, which really are the heart of our platform. If you're a nature-based organisation or an enterprise, you can join up to 3 communities on registration. You can see here now that we have 9 communities operating and active on the platform, with more to come soon. Each community is moderated by an industry leader, which is a kind of enterprise ambassador who will showcase best practice in the sector, raise awareness about the benefits and risks of nature-based solutions, and share sector-specific opportunities among community members. Community members, which are you, the nature-based enterprises, are welcome and encouraged to be active participants of your community, setting the agenda and shaping the activity and direction of the community you belong to. Thank you very much for all of your attention this morning. I'm going to hand over now to Antonia from Bio Azul, who will tell you more about the water management community that her company and her colleagues are moderating on the platform. Thanks. Over to you, Antonia.
Thank you, Isabel. Good morning, everybody. I'm going also to share my screen because I'm going to explain a little bit about our community, which is the one on water management. So as Isabel said, we as Biofuel, we took the role of ambassador of this community dedicated to nature-based enterprises and solutions related to water management. We would like that the community act as a forum for nature-based enterprises and also any kind of organization operating in the sector related to water management and nature-based solutions, including stormwater management, rainwater harvesting, wastewater treatment and reuse, etc. So the main idea of the community is really to learn from and with each other among the members of the community. If we look into the community page, I think, yeah, We have first the introduction, indicating the type of entities we are looking for. This statement will also invite you to share any kind of challenges and opportunities, as already mentioned by Isabel, and I will show you also, because these are also in our community section. So scrolling down, you will see the feature enterprise, which is the member acting as community leader. As said, Biofuel is acting at the moment as the ambassador and the leader, but the idea is that every 6 to 12 months, we have new community leaders, so any community member which is interested could be elected, and this will take the role as ambassador for the next period of time. Here you have also the description of FIASU. If we go a little bit down, here we have the community member section. At the moment, in our community, we have 23 members. You can see all of them, which are already there. Mainly, they are entities from Europe, but we also have some from Brazil and the United States. And it's nice to see how the community is already covering a wide range of expertise, with members working in sustainable drainage system, wastewater treatment and reuse, constructed wetlands, stormwater management, modeling, planning, etc. So if you want to see a little bit more about the members of the community, you can go to Ritmo. This is the case of Biofuel, and then you have the description, and then some products, services of the member. I go back, sorry. Yes. After this section, we have the latest news. So in this section, the aim is to have this channel to share with the community members research findings in the sector. So you are invited to inform us on any event or any news, any publication you want to communicate and disseminate, and then we will post it here. Here we have already several, as you can see. Going to the future opportunities, yeah, this is the section in which we want to post some information about different opportunities. Here we have one for a postdoctoral research position at the University of Vic in Spain, but the idea is that the platform should help really to develop the best practice and also identify opportunities to collaborate in the future. So you are invited also to send us information or post it directly if you are in the community on tenders, competition, requests for partners, for example, for new projects, you are looking for new partners to complete consortium, etc. Well, last but not least, we have this featured challenges section. And these are posted by the members of the community of the platform, municipal authorities, as you can see here, and also companies. And we would like really to use this section to stimulate ideas and innovation through these challenges. I would really encourage new and existing community members to be active in terms of posting challenges. And you can see here that we have several by now. And then if you go, you can see the description of the challenges. As you can see here, some companies which are already involved in the community has responded to this. And in case you want to respond to the challenges, you only have to click here and include your comments. And this is more or less for the page itself. But finally, I would like to inform you that we will organize as well in the community of water management some webinars every 2 months. The first one is coming by the end of November, and the topics of the webinars will be discussed also among the community in order to see which one are the ones related to challenges, for example, or those that are of high interest of the members of the community. Even though this is an online community, we also look forward to getting together as a community with some face-to-face meeting. Now with the current situation with the crisis of coronavirus, we cannot do it, but I hope we can do it from next year on. And well, I think this is all from my side. I would like to highlight that the aim now is to build this community, to have more members and growth every day. And we invite you all to register and get involved in the platform. Thank you. I will start sharing if I can. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Antonia and Isabel. That was great. That's a whistle-stop tour through a lot of functionality there on the platform. I'm seeing already that there's questions coming in. There's also comments about how we might improve the platform already. So in terms of getting some engagement going, it's already started. So well done to everyone. So now at this point now, we're going to move to the next major bit of this webinar. And the idea here is to have a panel discussion amongst all different kinds of stakeholders about how we might grow this sector. What is it and how we might actually support it. And so then without much more ado, I'm going to hand it over to the moderator for this part of the webinar. Moderator is Siobhan McQuaid, who is the Associate Director for Innovation in our Trinity Center for Social Innovation. And she's also the lead researcher on the Connecting Nature project in the center. So she's well able to moderate an exciting and interesting discussion. So over to you, Siobhan.
Thanks, Mary Lee. So yes, I am the real Siobhan McQuaid.
Yes,
And apologies for the sci-fi kind of duplication that was happening. There is only one, you'll be glad to hear. So thank you very much, as Mary Lee has already said, to our speakers so far for setting the scene a little bit for the discussion today. And really for setting an overall vision for what the nature-based economy could be and how important it could be. So what we want to do now in this panel discussion is really to dive a little bit deeper into the question of how do we make it happen? What do we need to do? What kind of measures need to be put in place, and who needs to be involved? So I really invite everybody listening this morning to get involved in this discussion through the questions and answers and through the chat forum. And Daniela from ICLEA is reading through all of your questions and through all of the comments, and she'll pull them all together, and hopefully we'll have time for a questions and answer session at the end, and we'll put some of these questions back to our panel. So don't hold back. As soon as you have a question or a comment, post it up and we'll come to it at the end. Before we introduce our panel though, we thought it might be a good idea to introduce you to them, to see who's on the call today. So on your screen now, I'm going to ask Esme, who's the other lead researcher on this research, just to put up a quick poll, if you could have a look at this and let us know where you're from. We're hoping good to see some nature-based enterprises. So while you're filling that out, I'll introduce you to the panel of speakers, and then we'll come back in a few minutes and see what the final picture looks like. So first of all, we have already had some excellent keynote speakers showing some vision in this area, and it's very clear that we need political will and leadership to make this transition happen. So we're delighted to welcome on our panel today Councillor Anna Richardson of the Scottish National Party, the SNP, and Anna is the City Convener for Sustainability and Carbon Reduction in Glasgow. We need more than political will though. We need practical measures and incentives to support and to grow the market, both on the demand and supply side. So to discuss the kind of measures that cities, government agencies and other actors can put in place, we welcome to the panel Andrés Alcantara from the Mediterranean Office of the IUCN, so the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, who've really done a sterling job in terms of raising the profile and setting global standards for nature-based solutions. We welcome Eleni Malakidou from ANEL, which is the Regional Agency for Development in Nicosia in Cyprus. At a national level and a little bit closer to home, we're very happy to have Mark Sweeney from Enterprise Ireland on the call today. And Enterprise Ireland, of course, is the national agency in Ireland responsible for the development and growth of Irish enterprises. On a European stage, we welcome Tamara Tumbric from the Regreen project, which has just started and is really looking at some of the challenges around financing and business models for nature-based enterprises. But we're going to start today with a couple of nature-based enterprises, the real stars of the show. And here, I think we saw very briefly an introduction to Helix, and we're going to introduce Hans Müller, who we call fondly the grandfather of nature-based enterprises, certainly in our project. They've very much been involved in this space for a number of years and have created award-winning products such as the urban living room and various oasis. And we also welcome Nadine Agrola, who is on the other side a startup and co-founder of Green City Watch, a leader in the application of smart technologies and what she calls the Internet of Nature. And she's a very good and interesting TED talk on this if you're interested. And we'll close the panel later today by going to the other side of the world and welcoming a nature-based enterprise from Brazil. But let's have a look perhaps first of all at the poll results and see who we have here. So maybe if we could close the poll and we have a look. So great, delighted we have a lot of nature-based enterprises, we've a lot of academic interest, we've third sectors, we've local government. I'm surprised we don't have Hazel and Anna identifying as politicians, but then of course everybody can play multiple roles. So thank you. We might just stop sharing that now, and we will go to Hans first. And Hans, as I was saying, Helix has been around for quite a while. If I could ask really, what kind of changes have you seen in terms of market awareness and demand for nature-based solutions? And what would you say are the changing challenges and the main challenge you face now?
Hello, Siobhan. Thank you that I can take part of this meeting. We realized the change in the level of awareness among the public sector. And 10 years ago, we really had to explain much more of what we're doing and the benefits of green, of course. So there's also more appreciation of the benefits and a more realistic understanding of the cost involved in especially maintaining green infrastructure in the long term.
Very good. And how has your business been impacted by COVID? Is that a major challenge, or are there other major challenges?
Oh yes, it was, Siobhan. COVID was a big shock to the system earlier this year. Market shut down overnight, and we had tons of plants on pallets and green living rooms planted and ready to go. But we have recovered better than expected, to be honest, perhaps due to a greater appreciation that COVID brought for more nature in people's lives.
Yes, indeed. And in fact, that is actually something we heard recently, some research carried out, we heard from Vera Enzi, who I think is on the call, about some research carried out in Austria that shows that this sector seemed to be more resilient in some ways to the crisis. But maybe, Nadine, I'll ask you the same question. Could you perhaps briefly introduce Green City Watch, first of all, and then maybe say a few words, because you're a startup. How is your business impacted by COVID, and what would you say the main challenges you encountered are?
Yeah, thank you so much, Siobhan, for having me here. I think what we realized as Green City Watch is that we saw smart cities continue to innovate and invest in applications for waste management, mobility, all civic processes. And we were quite frustrated that nature-based solutions were being left behind by the digital revolution. And that's really what the Internet of Nature concept is all about. And Green City Watch specifically is an open source initiative specialized in urban ecological engineering. So we leverage remote sensing and machine learning, something known as GeoAI, basically to boost urban tree longevity. And we do that specifically through our flagship project called TreeTect, which is an open source algorithm to detect urban trees and create AI-enabled tree inventories. One of the things that really hit us when COVID came around is that, of course, our primary customers were municipalities. And as soon as COVID hit, of course, the budgets for nature-based solutions and green infrastructure was halved, if not more than that. So that was and remains to be a very difficult situation for us, which also played a role in us moving towards open source, that we could still work on our mission without being held to the same business model.
Mm. That's really interesting. So two perspectives there, really. One, the very important to highlight that the role that technology plays in this sector and the importance of investing in technology, as you say, for green infrastructure, as well as the more commonly known sources of smart technologies in terms of sustainability and transport. And then the importance, I suppose, of recognising the importance of continuing support for this sector during crisis. Could I ask maybe everybody else, I'm not sure if there are other challenges being faced by some of our enterprises on the call, maybe if you could add it into the chat room. And I suppose what I would like to ask our nature-based enterprises at this stage are, what kind of support measures would help you, maybe in your case, Nadina, at the startup stage, and Hans, at your stage, more in terms of the more growth and maturity stage? And maybe I'll put up a poll. Esme, if I could ask you maybe to put up another poll, and we'll throw this out also to the audience. From your knowledge of nature-based enterprises, what kind of support measures would be useful to address the kind of challenges that Nadina and Hans just identified there? And we'll come back to that poll in a minute or two. So while we're waiting for people to respond, maybe Nadina, I'll put that question to you first. What kind of measures would you think would be useful to stimulate the market to support businesses like yours?
Yeah, so even before COVID, I think one of the primary challenges we ran into as a smaller starting organization was the extremely restrictive procurement processes that municipalities have in place. And if these are, if there's agendas out and visions out for wanting to become a greener and nature-based city, that also needs to be reflected in the procurement processes to be able to work with these beginning organizations that may have fantastic solutions on offer, but just are simply too small to get their foot in the door. So we've gotten lucky over the years to work with, for example, a World Bank to be able to get our foot in the door, but you won't always have us as a startup be able to have the backing of an organization like the World Bank. So that is a huge challenge that remains for us, is these restrictive public procurement processes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. And I know, and I'll give a little bit of a plug now to a report actually, which I believe was just published earlier this week by one of our sister projects, Unilab, on the challenges facing public procurement of nature-based solutions. And it's something I know our cities are very aware of. But, as you say, you highlight the importance of providing demo sites for young startups like yours. Perhaps, Hans, maybe if I ask you the same question, as a more established enterprise, you have demo sites. What other kind of support measures would you like to see put in place for this sector?
Yeah, as I said, there is a much higher awareness we're facing, and also acceptance for more green and urban areas, at least in Germany. But from my point of view, it is important that policymakers and city councils really continue to push and communicate the need of blue and green infrastructure in urban areas. As I said, a lot of positive action have already happened in Germany in the last 2 years, and that really has to go on. That's important.
Yes, and thank you also for highlighting. We talk about a green infrastructure a lot, but I know Gillian from Glasgow constantly reminds us that it's not just green infrastructure, it's blue, and integrating green and blue with grey. Very important to make that point, so thank you for highlighting that. And in fact, if I'm just looking at the poll results now, and they seem to echo very much what you were saying, both of you were saying there, about the importance of raising awareness, more so in the public sector, but also in the private sector, raising awareness of nature-based solutions. And then, of course, access to finance. And I'd like to explore a little bit more, maybe these last point there, market stimulation measures. So yes, we might close that poll now. And what I'd like to do is maybe go over to our some of the other members of our panels to discuss both the challenges and the measures that we have seen suggested there, and maybe see what's happening in different countries to support this sector. So Andreas, if it's okay, I'll start with you. So there has been, Hans, you heard him just saying there that there's an increasing level of awareness of nature-based solutions in Northern Europe, in Germany, for example. But we've also heard that there's perhaps less awareness in Southern Europe and further afield. Could I ask perhaps what your experience is in the Mediterranean region, and as an international organisation, as the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, what do you see as the economic potential of nature-based solutions for this region?
Well, good morning. Thank you to Connecting Nature for this invitation. Well, IUCN is well implanted in the Mediterranean region, being implanted in almost all the countries of the Mediterranean shore. IUCN created the terminology of nature-based solutions and recently launched a global standard for nature-based solutions. Since 2017, we have been working on the dissemination and implementation of the concepts, especially in cities and marine and coastal habitats, have been our main focus for ecosystem to apply nature-based solutions in the last years. Some of the key issues for the future and for the development of nature-based solutions will be training in the designing and implementation of nature-based solutions in the Mediterranean economies, create and promote a network between the Mediterranean countries, and finally create a nature-based solution catalog of good practice, include cost benefits and analysis. Investment in nature-based solutions will help safeguard and maintain ecosystem which vital for food, water supplies, protects against natural disaster, and provides goods and services key to human well-being and economic development in the Mediterranean region.
Excellent, excellent. And in fact, that is something that we have heard from a number of other different countries where the concept is not as well known, that it's very important to have this catalogue of nature-based solutions. And I know they're developing something similar in Brazil. And they've done, our partner in Poznan have done something similar. And maybe this is one of the ways the Connecting Nature Enterprise platform could help to support this increased awareness by really highlighting what kind of solutions are out there and how people can, or how enterprises can contribute to this. And could I ask you also, Andres, because I know that you were involved as a co-founder of the nature-based solution cluster for Malaga. Could I ask you perhaps to explain who's involved in that cluster and why specifically it was set up?
Yes. Well, IUCN is working with a new strategic working lines for 2020-2024. And nature-based solutions is one of the key issues for our program. And on nature-based solution program, we have 3 lines. The first one is promoting the nature-based solution standard in the Mediterranean, including capacity building in nature-based solution. The second one is supporting the deployment and uptake of nature-based solution in the public and private sector. And the third, enhancing the framework condition for nature-based solutions at political level, policy level, including economy incentives. That is the reason why we are working in Malaga for the creation of this nature-based solution cluster. We have created this nature-based solution cluster 2 years ago. The potential of the nature-based solution in an urban environment in the near future relies in the recovery of neighborhoods through a participatory process, a process of co-creation, co-production, and governance, with the goal to move from unsustainable planning and construction to sustainable through nature-based solutions and nature-based enterprises. That is the reason why we are working together with public administrations, universities, and private companies. Thanks to this public and private collaboration, we hope to be able to create awareness around the nature-based solution and stimulate the markets. Projects such as the Lagunillas pilot are an example of this collaboration in the Lagunillas area.
Yes, thank you again, Andres, for raising that important point. Co-creation is a word that is always associated with nature-based solutions. And as you said, it's so important in terms of establishing a sustainable future and establishing these co-governance models, that co-production. It's time is taken at the start during the planning phase to properly involve all of the different stakeholders. What I might do actually now is stay in the south of Europe for a little while, and I might move over, Eleni, if that's okay, to you in Nicosia. So I know that you are working closely with the public sector in terms of implementing large scale nature-based solutions in public parks. But what I really wanted to ask you about today, I heard about a proposal that you're developing, or a plan to involve the private sector. Could you tell us a little bit more about your Adopt a Park scheme, and I suppose your motivation for setting that up?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Siobhan, for your question and for giving us the opportunity to speak about our scheme, which is still under development. So the Adopt a Park scheme promotes long-term partnerships between local businesses, enterprises, and city government to maintain and beautify the neighborhood parks. So the main challenge faced is that limited opportunities to involve the private sector, because the larger parks in Cyprus are mainly financed and operated by the central government. So the opportunity we identified was the existence of lots of smaller green spaces in our area of intervention, the area of the municipalities of the Greater Nicosia. Most of these small green spaces are underused and abandoned. So, and the owner of these spaces are the municipalities, which are more open, let's say, to private sector involvement in investing and developing these smaller green spaces.
That's really interesting, and it reminds me straight away, of course, of the Stall Spaces programme in Glasgow. But could you be a little bit more specific, if I could ask, in terms of what kind of private sector involvement you're looking for? What's the role of business in this?
Yes, sure. So there are, let's say, two different roles for businesses. First, the larger businesses that can invest in these small green spaces as part of their corporate social responsibility strategies. And the second one, the smaller businesses, including nature-based enterprises such as landscape architects and gardeners, that can be involved by implementing the plans and maintaining these small green spaces. At this point, I would like to highlight the importance of the Connecting Nature Enterprise platform as a tool, especially for the larger businesses that will participate in our scheme, as a means to involve the citizens and MBEs at the co-design, delivery, maintenance, and impact monitoring of their nature-based solutions.
Excellent, excellent. It sounds very interesting. When are you going to launch this, and how will it work?
So the call for the first 200 small green spaces we have already identified to be adopted in the district of Nicosia will be announced early 2021, hopefully the latest by March. So each business who adopts a green space puts together a plan which needs to meet the guidelines we are developing, and the business adopter is responsible to plan, plant, and maintain the entire green space and committed to its ongoing care for at least 5 years.
Wow, that's 200 spaces and 5-year commitment. That's quite an ask. But I know you're confident you'll get there. And I suppose I know what you haven't mentioned, but I know very much part of your process is also this co-production, that the businesses who are adopting the parks work very closely with the local communities to develop the design and the planning. Brilliant. So you've touched on there on the subject of private sector investment in nature-based solutions. And this, I suppose, is a nice segue into Tamara, if I can ask you perhaps to comment a little bit on this, because we saw from the poll that access to finance is an important issue for nature-based enterprises and for stimulating this sector. Could I ask you, Tamara, just to tell us a little bit about the kind of activities the Regreen project is planning to tackle these kind of challenges?
Thank you, Siobhan. Well, in the Green Project, we have just begun to unveil nature-based enterprises by kicking our market research. Of course, Connecting Nature's groundbreaking work has been serving us in orienting our research approach, and we intend to continue to build upon it in the future. Well, namely, it's very clear that nature-based enterprises require additional financing opportunities and sources. And of course, the adoption of novel business and financial models and revenue streams, all in order to become less reliant on public funding, which is oftentimes very limited. Within our research in Regreen, we want to focus on which are prevailing and which are forward-looking business and financial models. Of course, all with the aim to further develop them and promote solutions for their improvement of business and financial models for nature-based enterprises. Also, Regreen will organize an accelerator program around its 3 urban living labs, which are Paris, Velika Gorica, and Arush, to promote innovation processes for nature-based solutions. Here we will target already established SMEs and startups, but also we want to invite informal groups of citizens and associations to participate. Our accelerator program shall be organized across several stages, and we want to offer training, ideation, business incubation, and support events, all with the aim to connect the local innovation communities around nature-based solutions and help to generate and establish new nature-based enterprises that should be much needed in the future.
That sounds very exciting, Tamara. I know you're just at an early stage, but we have, I should say, set up, I know internally within the European Commission's task force on finance and business models, we've set up a working group so that we can coordinate between different projects in terms of sharing the research, because it's such a new area, this area of nature-based enterprises. And we're delighted to see other projects like Regreen following and doing research and investing very practical support measures like accelerator programs to support the enterprises. And we'll bring those to the enterprises on the platform and let them know what opportunities are coming down the line. At this stage, we should also mention the Network Nature project, which is also just recently started. And I know they have a whole area of focus on businesses as well. So we'll keep everybody informed of developments and opportunities arising from other projects as well. So if we stay with this area of kind of supports and stimulation of startups and growth of businesses, but we maybe perhaps move more at a national level. Mark, could I bring you in at this point as I suppose the national agency in Ireland responsible for you know, enterprise startup and development, and maybe ask first of all, what's your position on the nature-based economy, and what kind of measures you think could be put in place to support it in an Irish context?
Thanks, Siobhan. Just by way of introduction, everybody, Enterprise Ireland is the government agency that works with entrepreneurs across the full business spectrum. So we work from, you know, start-up to large companies, and our agency develops and grows these companies. So we help them start, grow, innovate and win export sales in global markets. So Enterprise Ireland and I personally, as a Horizon 2020 NCP, are very supportive and particularly interested in the nature-based economy. In Ireland, I think there's a growing appetite for nature-based solutions, driven mainly by climate change and the decarbonisation agendas. I think the value of nature-based solutions in terms of job creation, the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and pollutants, increases in the resilience of vulnerable ecosystems, and that was mentioned earlier, as well as, you know, the better well-being of communities is driving this interest. So many governments are also developing climate action plans, and there's a need to ensure the value of nature-based solutions is integrated into these plans. So, you know, as a Horizon 2020 NCP, I'm delighted to see so many Irish institutions involved in NBS or in, you know, research and innovation activities. And involved in a number of large-scale European-funded projects, particularly TCD and UCD. And I think this bodes well for the upcoming Green Deal and Horizon Europe RNI funding programs, where nature-based solutions, and I know from discussions that are ongoing now and negotiations, they will no doubt form a strong component in these programs. So ourselves as an organisation, we support companies and research performing organisations involved in the nature-based economy through a wide range of financial and soft supports which cover the whole innovation value chain to help them successfully commercialize new products and services. We can also help companies hone their value proposition and help them access funding to scale their offerings. So we work with, and I personally, with a lot of early stage companies trying to commercialize and gain access into markets. So through our networks, we can also advise and assist on how to to enter these markets, and there's a wide range of international market opportunities there that we can help them with. I think in terms of the Connecting Nature enterprise platform, and I'm very interested in it there this morning to see it actually in operation. I think it can play an important role in raising awareness in terms of the potential of nature-based solutions. I think there's a big deficit there in terms of, and it was mentioned earlier, in terms of public enterprises, in terms of what nature-based solutions are. They're very comfortable with their types of solutions, but whilst they know enterprise or nature-based solutions exist, they're often not comfortable in terms of how they're valorized, etc. So I think that's important. So I think the platform will make it easier for public and private sector to connect with suppliers of such solutions. And I think whilst the nature-based market sector has huge potential in terms of economic, social and environmental impacts, it's relatively new and fragmented. So I think the Connecting Nature enterprise platform can really help with this by creating a critical mass of companies and other stakeholders with innovative offerings in this space.
Great, thanks, Mark. And indeed, we're very delighted to have such great support in Ireland for this concept, and for, I suppose, as you highlighted there, increasing the level of awareness and the need for these, and delighted to see nature-based solutions integrated as a core component in the Dublin City Council Climate Action Plan, and indeed that of all of the other council areas in Dublin. So I think it would be really interesting to look and see how the kind of standard offering, if you like, of business support agencies needs to be kind of adapted to meet the specific challenges faced by nature-based enterprises. And I know we've put together a very short guidebook on the Connecting Nature website with just some pointers and some examples of other, for example, the Arena Incubator in London, where they are also specifically supporting this sector. But again, it's a very early stage. We're very much at a nascent stage of research, and it's a case of what can we do to look at the specific challenges? Can we get more research going on this? And then, of course, as you said, how do we take the research and translate it into products, services, startups, businesses, or sources of growth and innovation for existing businesses. So there's a lot to do. We're at the start, but it's great to have this discussion here today and kind of kick it off. And again, I see we've over 100 messages in the chat, so lots of ideas coming through. And Danielle, I don't envy you trying to regroup those or group those together for our panel at the end. But before we go to the questions and answers, I'd like to maybe go to the final, if you like, live speaker on our panel today. And this is Councillor Anna Richardson from Glasgow. And if I could say, Glasgow is one of the frontrunner cities in Connecting Nature and has shown considerable leadership in integrating nature-based solutions and biodiversity restoration into your open space strategy. But if I could ask you, Anna, perhaps just to close, if you like, this part of the panel discussion with a few words on your vision of how you see nature-based enterprises and the nature-based economy reshaping Scottish society in the future. Over to you,
Siobhan.
Anna.
Thank you, Siobhan. It's an absolute pleasure to be here speaking on behalf of Glasgow at an event that comes at a time when we're all so aware of the importance of our green spaces and the critical role that is played in our cities by high quality natural environments. And similar to the experience of Dublin that we've already heard, Glasgow has been hit very hard by the COVID pandemic, both socially and economically. And lockdown itself was particularly challenging for the large proportion of our population who live in flats and tenements and don't have a private outdoor space of their own. As a city, we're really proud of being known as the Dear Green Place, but we also recognise that that's not accessible to everyone. And we have so many opportunities now to use nature-based solutions to improve the quality of life in our communities. Because as well as our parks in Glasgow, we have a wealth of open space, but not all of it is of good quality and usable. Our data suggests that 60% of Glasgow's population live within 500 metres of vacant and derelict land, and that's been shown to have a negative impact on their collective mental health and well-being. So we are determined to address that, and by developing Glasgow's open space strategy, we have a vision that addresses all types of open space. As has been said already, the blue, the green and the grey really matter. And we set out that by 2050, we will have a network of good quality, well-distributed and multifunctional open spaces, connecting infrastructure as well, that will contribute positively to the city's livability, to the health and well-being of our people, and of course the long-term resilience of the city in relation to any threats and potential opportunities that arise from climate change. So through the strategic development of our existing open spaces, we have a chance to show Glaswegians on the ground that nature-based solutions can bring social, environmental and also economic benefits to their own neighbourhoods. So we're very pleased to be here as part of the discussion today about the potential of open spaces to generate economic opportunities. It's already very much on the agenda for us in Glasgow, as you've alluded to. So for example, we are working closely with Green Space Scotland to look at the potential of our parks to generate geothermal energy. We're also revamping our stalled spaces programme, which has already been mentioned. It encourages communities or businesses to come forward with ideas to use vacant space. Over the last 10 years, this programme's been running and we've seen many community projects emerge, from community gardens to social enterprises. It offers local people a straightforward route to making the derelict land in their neighbourhood work for them. Of course, Scotland and Glasgow have ambitious climate change targets. So through Connecting Nature, we are looking forward to piloting initiatives that will leverage our wealth of open spaces to support the startup and growth of nature-based enterprises and contribute to Scotland's national goal to deliver a net zero emission economy by 2045. And here in Glasgow, we've set hugely ambitious targets of carbon neutrality by 2030, and that will require significant partnership working to achieve. So nature-based solutions and our open space strategy will help us to get there, while at the same time enabling the local economy to thrive. If I may just finish my remarks, I'd like to mention an event that we are very much looking forward to next March. Glasgow will be hosting the inaugural edition of the Connecting Nature Summit Series with the online Nature-Based Solutions Innovation Summit. This will bring together and highlight nature-based solutions innovation from Glasgow, Scotland and wider. It will be jointly curated by Green Space Scotland and Glasgow City Council, and I'd urge all of you to look out for further details on this platform soon. Thank you, Siobhan.
Thank you, Anna. And yes, it's heartening to see such a positive message there from our political leaders, very much needed. If I could just go back to one thing that you mentioned there, which struck me as very relevant and hasn't really been perhaps addressed in the panel so far. You mentioned geothermal energy, and I know I had the opportunity before lockdown, actually just in February this year, to attend the Park Power Conference organised by Green Space Scotland. And I think that's a really, really interesting perspective. And how do we use our parks and our resources to generate energy and to really, sometimes we look at these two issues in isolation, but I think a lot more needs to be done. And you're again very much, I suppose, leading the way in terms of looking at the overlap and the intersection between, you know, sustainable energy and nature-based solutions. And I think that we need to really do a lot more of that in the future, also expanding into other areas like sustainable transport and so on, and seeing how we can, these different sectors can be better integrated. But thank you so much for again, as I said, the political leadership. Our research has identified that that is most important above anything else in terms of success in implementing nature-based solutions. So well done. We're almost out of time, but what I'm going to do now is very briefly go over to the other side of the world, to Brazil, where it's very early in the morning, but I know that Guilherme was on the call earlier today, so you must have been up at about 5 o'clock in the morning. And Guilherme Castanha from Fluxus, and I'm going to ask him to say a few words about nature-based solutions outside of Europe, because of course the Connecting Nature Enterprise platform is a global platform, and Collier has been really instrumental in working with different regions as part of Connecting Nature to really raise the profile, and that is in conjunction very much with local partners like Guilherme. So I'm not sure if we're going to play a video or if we're going to go to Guilherme live, but I'd like to have a few words from Guilherme just to kind of give a different perspective of what the level of awareness and what's happening outside of Europe. Over to Guilherme. Okay, we have a video, great.
Thanks, Siobhan. Thanks for introducing us, and good morning to everyone. Fluxus is a collaborative firm that draws together engineering and ecology, providing intelligent and integrated ecological design solutions, fostering a renewed relationship between society and water. We use a wide range of nature-based solutions in our approach of designing fully circular flow in water-sensitive designs, bringing about a change in paradigm where wastewater is seen as a rich resource, as well as designing strategies to rehydrate landscapes with rainwater through bioretention or other NBS, designing open code systems while bringing in public participation. Fluxus has been working with NBS for a while now, but it's yet not a very well-known concept at all in Brazil and South America. To date, more customers come from the private sector rather than the public, and they're dealing with real climate change issues, such as this glass industry in São Paulo, which we supported a few years back by implementing a monitoring system and other practical measures, like rain gardens that reduce stormwater overflows, provide improved microclimates, and increase aquifer recharge, on which the industry relies. Following an urban by nature webinar on nature-based entrepreneurship, and with support from our friends at the Malaga NBS cluster and ICLEI, we have been working closely with ICLEI South America and the CNEP, the Center for Strategic Studies and Management, to develop a Brazilian NBE cluster. Connecting Nature continues supporting us now through a customized mentoring program for 8 Brazilian NBEs to develop their businesses starting right next year. To finish it off, I want to invite you all through our partner, the Center for Strategic Studies and Management, which will launch the Sustainable City Innovation Observatory platform this coming November 5th at 12 p.m. GMT. The platform maps and disseminates innovative urban solutions contextualized to Brazil, connecting private initiatives, public sector, academia, and civil society. The event will have simultaneous translation into English, and it will be available at www.cgee.org.br. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guilherme, and I hope you're on the call now so you can take some questions live if we have any for you. I'll put that date in my diary, the 5th of November. I thought what was really interesting there, and it's something I found fascinating in the difference between the nature-based enterprises in Europe, which seem to have quite a high level of dependence on public sector investment in nature-based solutions, whereas in Brazil, as you said, it's really the private sector who are leading the uptake. So that could be, again, it's very early stages, but it would be very interesting to look into this a little bit further. So that's it from the panel. We have about 10 minutes now, which is great, to take some questions and answers. Daniela, I don't envy at all your job in terms of trying to go through the very active chat, which is fantastic, and thank you so much everybody for getting involved. But maybe if you've got a couple of questions, we'll see who on the panel might be able to respond to them, and we could also bring in a couple of other experts maybe who we know are on the call.
Yes, for sure. So I have been clustering some questions. We also got a lot of comments, actually. We got not so many questions as we got comments. So I'm going to also maybe read some comments. But first, let's go to questions. So there is somebody here, for example, it has been also answered for some from Nature. But we have a question here. What's actually the difference between nature-based organization, NBO, and nature-based enterprise, NBE?
That's a very good question, Daniela. And actually, I had anticipated that this one might come up. So I have asked Esme, who is, as I mentioned at the beginning, led a lot of the research which Connection Nature has done on nature-based enterprises. And maybe, Esme, if you are, I can't see you there, but I can't see everybody. If you're there, could you perhaps maybe speak to that point?
Yes, of course. Thank you for that question, and thank you for the introduction, Siobhan. So yeah, we have conducted this research to see what a nature-based enterprise is. And in that research, we actually found that a lot of organizations we thought were enterprises were actually not. So how we distinguish between an enterprise and an organization here is that an enterprise will sell products in a certain market. So it will be a commercial enterprise. Now, the main difference between a nature-based organization and an enterprise is this commercial orientation.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered the question. I already answered it a bit in the chat.
Yeah, I know there was a kind of two criteria that you looked at. One was the nature-based component. So nature-based organizations could be, for example, city councils, right? Like the departments that are focused on delivering nature-based solutions, but they're not selling them as such. Whereas then you have examples like Helix and BioAzul, who are actually selling nature-based solutions. They're using nature in a sustainable way as part of their product service offering. But I know that you've also, I don't know, you have a paper ready for publication. I'm not sure if that's been submitted yet. When that's available, I think it will also help to kind of clarify a lot where we are on that. But in the meantime, I know there's more information on the Connecting Nature website.
Yes, definitely. Check that out for sure.
Yeah. And maybe if anyone has any questions, more specific questions, we'd love to follow up, maybe drop us an email afterwards. Back to you, Daniela. Anything?
Yes. I have the next one here. So it's about not focusing only on the public sector. So this was a question that was posed to Hans Müller, and maybe it's good to push this question also here to the panel. You work with greening buildings, right, Hans? So do you see the necessity to reach private building owners better with your solution? So the question is, can you do that, or how are you doing that, such as housing estate developers, building contractors, and etc.?
Yes, of course. The first driver was the public sector, but we realize in Germany that that corporates are getting more and more interested in green roofs and green facades. And from my point of view, it needs a very wide communication to reach the private sector as well. And of course, the communication from the government and also from the Green Deal discussion from the EU helps to raise awareness in the private sector.
And Hans, I know from conversations I've had with you that you've noticed, interestingly, and I thought this was quite interesting because it wasn't just in Germany, but also our partners in Poland, noticed the retail sector, who were probably one of the sectors that have benefited most from the pandemic, if you can say that. But they are now seeing, well, how can we give back to our communities? And I know that you've been in touch with, or several supermarkets have been in touch with you, and the same in Poland, and really interested in seeing how they can engage in this kind of, either in your case, the green facades of the supermarkets, and in Poznan, maybe supporting maybe community projects. So that could be really interesting perspective to, again, explore further. But as I said, we're really just scratching the surface here. It's such a new area, and we really welcome further kind of research and further studies into what the potential is in the private sector. And I think we can learn a lot from what's happening in Brazil and from Guilherme.
So the next one goes to Guilherme, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so Guilherme, could you comment a little bit on the fact that the private sector is kind of a little bit the main player in the Brazilian arena? And she's asking, what about some community-based initiatives? Could you comment a bit on that? And maybe to the other, maybe Anna Richardson can speak afterwards. Do participants from other cities here have similar experiences? Like, who would you consider the main player, for example, in Glasgow? So first to you, Guilherme.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the question. I think it was low and right. Anyway, we are really seeing a lot of demand from the private sector, because I understand that they recognize the importance of being active players in the field. They cannot wait any longer. And the public sector in itself is really slow, and it depends largely on the implementation of legislation, of specific legislations and norms, while the private sector has a little bit more freedom to implement plans according to their own needs. So we have seen a lot of that, especially in the in the drought that happened in the southeast of Brazil nearly 2013 and 15, which is happening again now. So a lot of companies are coming up to their own terms in structuring themselves to be more resilient, and so they're taking action. On the other hand, community-based initiatives are starting to sprout out again, because I also think they, in general terms, waited for long for government action, and we're seeing that government is not acting at all. It is just too slow. So communities getting together and finding their own ways and their own means, and mostly supported by local NGOs, but in many other initiatives, there are no NGOs involved at all. It's just a real community-driven action. So we're seeing that happening all across Brazil, really. That's it. Thank you.
Actually, that's a very important point that you raise, and which we haven't really touched on here, which is community organisations, community associations, and their role in the nature-based economy. And we have some wonderful examples from A Coruña in Spain, for example, where they have really transitioned from publicly owned, say, community gardens to involving community associations in really taking over the governance and direction of those. And we've seen the emergence of nature-based enterprises from those kinds of initiatives. So I think the community involvement is something which we could probably spend another webinar discussing. But maybe, as you said, Daniela, Anna might have something to comment on that as well.
Yes, Anna, we would like to hear from you a bit.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I can say much more than that. I think there's something very powerful about when we have communities, private and public sector, all coming together. Certainly, as a council, as a local authority, we can set policy, we can set the tone and the expectation, and we can have those high ambitions. We can't achieve them without private sector investment and without everybody pulling together. But certainly what energizes us and keeps us going is when communities are speaking up, when they're self-organising, when they're telling us what they need, but they're also just getting on with it and doing it for themselves. Across Glasgow, there are so many small groups, organisations that are doing incredible things, and the more we can get them together and create that as one force that moves forward, I think that is what energises those of us in the public sector, and also encourages the private sector that this is really important and they need to be involved.
Thank you, Anna. Daniela, do we have time for one other quick question before we hand over to Marcus to close? Or comment, whichever.
Two very good questions, but okay, I'll start with this one to Andres. We go to Malaga a bit, and the question is, how do we create these NBS clusters like the one that Andres presented today? This could be a really, really helpful approach. So what tips do you have for us, Andres?
Well, the cluster, we created the cluster 2 years ago. Now we have more than 20 companies, 2 universities, University of Malaga, International University of Andalusia, and we have also local administration and regional administration. So the cluster now has different projects in Andalusia. And really, we are developing different concept nodes of projects in the Spanish, different Spanish regional communities, and we are increasing the number of companies and institutions that they are interested to create this cluster in the different area of the Mediterranean.
Actually, Daniela, I think that might be the subject perhaps of another webinar, because of course this is the first in a series of webinars around this concept of nature-based enterprises and how do we support it. And I know Andres and Christian and Isabel from ProMalaga were very helpful in supporting the start of the cluster in Brazil. And we're also maybe looking and talking to you guys at the moment about how to maybe use the platform to create these geographical clusters, to create and to showcase this kind of catalogue of solutions that are out there. So maybe this is something we take up after this call, Daniela, and yeah, and maybe organise another webinar on this. I'm afraid that you're going to have to put the last question in the chat, because I'm going to have to hand over to Marcus to say a few closing words. Marcus, are you there?
I am here, yes. Thank you very much, Siobhan. Appreciate that. So I haven't met all of you. My name is Marcus Collier. I'm the coordinator of the Connecting Nature project, and based in Dublin with Siobhan. And I just want to conclude by saying thank you so much for first of all, thank you to European Commission, Lord Mayor of Dublin, our colleagues in Enterprise Ireland and in Glasgow City and all our own people and people outside our project who were speaking on the webinar today. And I hope it's given you a flavor of where we are intending to go with these innovations, that we're innovating with nature, and this is where we're hoping to go with these things. I would encourage you to register, keep registered if you haven't already. I presume you have. Shame might force you into registering for on the nature-based enterprise platform, or just curiosity. You just want to nosy around, and spread the word to people who aren't able to attend today, because this is a platform that has the potential for leveraging additional funding for innovators and entrepreneurs in the nature space. And innovating and leveraging networks, which are the most critical in terms of developing the community of interests that will support nature-based enterprises beyond the end of all our projects as we do this. I would also like to say thank you very much to the organizing committee, to Siobhan, to Isabel, Esme. And Danielle, I'm going to keep forgetting names here, I'm sorry. But it was really well done. And we do hope, and we will be running a series of follow-up webinars, and you will be informed. And as Anne said earlier on, we will be we're organizing a series of summits. The first one in Glasgow, which will be a virtual summit on nature-based innovation. Next June, we're hoping to organize a summit on nature-based enterprises in Poznan in June, July. And we will be concluding with a summit in Genk the year after, looking at how we look at impact from nature-based solutions. So this is part of a greater process. If you are involved in producing or going for a Green Deal or Horizon Europe projects in a proposal, please consider using some of the innovations that are coming out of Connecting Nature, such as the Nature-Based Enterprise Platform and Urban by Nature and so on, as tools to collaborate and communicate and to spread the message and to scale out nature-based solutions across Europe. And once again, thank you so much for attending. I appreciate these wonderful questions. I was just blown away by some of the responses and some of the questions as well. Guys, you're brilliant, and thank you so much for joining us. And we're really looking forward to seeing you again at a later date. Thank you. Siobhan. Microphone, Siobhan.
Sorry, thank you, Marcus. I think we leave it at that. We look forward to register on the platform, and we'll follow up with the next in the webinar series. Thank you so much, Marcus. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.